Have you ever wondered why some people command respect without asking for it, while others spend their whole lives begging for approval they never receive? The difference isn't luck. It isn't talent. It's psychology. Power in the real world doesn't belong to the nicest, the smartest, or even the most hardworking. It belongs to those who understand how human influence truly works. And here's the brutal truth. If you don't learn these principles, someone else already has, and they're using them on you. Most people live in a fog of politeness, desperate to be liked. They explain, justify, and compromise, hoping others will value them for their intentions. But likability doesn't create respect. It creates dependency. It makes you predictable. And predictable people are easy to control. True psychological dominance begins the moment you stop asking, "Will they like me if I do this?" and start asking, "Will this increase or decrease my power?" The strategies you're about to discover are not theories. They are battle-tested psychological weapons. From narrative control to systems of consequences to the art of silent dominance, you will learn how the most formidable individuals operate behind the scenes while everyone else scrambles for scraps of approval. This isn't about becoming cruel or manipulative. It's about reclaiming control of your life before someone else controls it for you. The world doesn't reward innocence. It rewards those who can combine intelligence with strategy, kindness with boundaries, and presence with power. If you've ever felt overlooked, disrespected, or underestimated, this message is for you. Because from this moment forward, you're going to stop playing the game blind. You're going to master it. Life is not a balanced game. The earlier you accept this reality, the sooner you'll stop being a pawn in a system designed to exploit the naive. While you're here listening to this, there are people with less intelligence than you, with weaker skills, and even with less effort, who are still living the life you secretly desire. They command attention, gain respect, and move forward, not because they're inherently better, but because they've tapped into the darker truths of human psychology. From childhood, you were conditioned to obey rules that powerful people stopped following centuries ago. You were told to be polite while others were being strategic. You were advised to wait patiently for respect, while others were already taking it by force. You were trained to believe fairness exists, but in truth, the world punishes those who cling to that illusion. This is the brutal reality. The game of life is rigged, but not in the way you think. It isn't biased against the poor, the weak, or the ignorant. It is tilted against those who refuse to see the real rules of human behavior. It is designed to crush people who believe good intentions matter more than influence, who think kindness will automatically be rewarded, and who confuse fairness with strength. Over 500 years ago, in the ruthless political jungle of Renaissance Italy, Niccolò Machiavelli tore apart the illusions of morality and fairness. He studied power, influence, betrayal, and ambition in their rawest forms. And what he revealed was devastating. Good men finish last, while those who master the strategies of psychological warfare rise above the rest. His insights weren't just lessons for kings and rulers. They were survival manuals for anyone who refuses to remain invisible in a manipulative world. Today, I will show you 8 psychological principles drawn from this harsh wisdom. These laws will turn you from someone who is overlooked, ignored, and stepped on, into someone who radiates confidence, commands influence, and cannot be dismissed. But be warned. Once you see these truths, you can never unsee them. Once you learn them, you will no longer have the comfort of playing victim. I wasn't born with this mindset. I used to be the invisible one, the person who worked hard, had the answers, did the right thing, and got absolutely nothing in return. I saw incompetent people climb ladders I was holding for them. I saw manipulators build empires while honest workers burned out. I saw charming liars attract endless followers while genuine people ate lunch alone. And then it hit me. The world doesn't honor intelligence, it honors influence. It doesn't reward sincerity, it rewards presence. It doesn't care about your pure heart, it cares about your ability to dominate psychologically. That realization shattered my illusions, but it also freed me. For the first time, I saw the code behind the system. You've been tricked into believing fairness is noble. But fairness is nothing more than a leash for the obedient. While you wait for things to be fair, others are snatching what you want without hesitation. Every time you expect reciprocity, you're falling into a trap. Manipulators already know you'll act predictably, and they exploit it. Think about your life. How many times have you shown respect to someone who never returned it? How often have you helped someone who disappeared when you needed them? How many times have you quietly waited for your turn, only to see others cut the line and win? That isn't bad luck. It's conditioning. You were trained to lose. Machiavelli warned of this centuries ago. He said that when you harm someone slightly, they remember and plot revenge. But when you crush them completely, they submit and move on. The same principle applies to respect. Half measures make you look weak. If you push back timidly, you make enemies who see you as vulnerable. Real psychological dominance means you never argue for your worth. You act in ways that make disrespect costly. People must feel that mistreating you carries immediate consequences. Stop treating people fairly when they refuse to treat you fairly. Start treating them strategically. Most people misunderstand ruthlessness. They think it means being violent or cold-blooded. The truth? Ruthlessness is nothing more than emotional discipline. It is the ability to remain unshaken while others lose control. Ruthless people don't explode in anger, they calculate. They don't argue emotionally, they respond logically. They don't act from wounded pride, they act from strategy. This is why emotionally reactive people never gain true influence. They are easy to manipulate. Anyone who knows their triggers can make them dance. The powerful, on the other hand, treat emotions as signals, not commands. They feel anger or frustration, but they don't obey those emotions. They ask, what action strengthens me in this moment? What response weakens my opponent while elevating my position? Imagine someone humiliates you in public. The weak person lashes out defensively, proving the attacker's point. The strong person chooses silence, or perhaps a sharp factual remark that destroys the attacker's credibility. Their composure itself is a weapon. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. He wrote that injuries should be dealt all at once, swiftly and decisively, so there's no ongoing battle. The same applies to psychological warfare. Don't get trapped in drama. Don't keep fighting emotionally. Strike once, cleanly, and leave your opponent powerless. Think of the most commanding people you know. They aren't the loudest in the room. They don't scream, they don't lose their temper. Instead, they radiate calm authority. People fear to cross them not because they shout, but because they never lose composure. This emotional sovereignty is the root of power. Here's a truth most people don't want to accept. Being liked is overrated. In fact, being too likable is often a weakness. When people merely like you, they test your limits. They disrespect you casually because they assume you'll forgive them. They take your kindness as a guarantee that they can use you without consequences. But when people respect you, when they sense your psychological strength, they hesitate. They measure their words. They treat you with caution. They think twice before trying to step over you. Machiavelli himself was blunt. It is safer to be feared than loved, if you must choose. Now, this doesn't mean you should be cruel. It means you must develop a presence that signals, I am not to be disrespected. You can be warm, even generous, but you must also be formidable. In practice, this means saying no without guilt. It means refusing to let anyone cross your boundaries. It means valuing your time, your presence, and your reputation more than temporary approval. Likeable people agree to everything, hoping to please. Dominant people are selective. They don't chase inclusion. They decide what deserves their involvement. You've probably noticed that in groups, the person who speaks the most isn't always the most respected. Sometimes it's the quiet one. The one who listens carefully, who doesn't waste words, who speaks only when it matters. Their silence isn't weakness, it's presence. In psychology, presence is often more powerful than persuasion. People trust those who radiate confidence even in silence. Your posture, your eye contact, the way you carry yourself. These things communicate far more than endless words. Machiavelli observed this in rulers. The strongest leaders didn't always need to justify themselves. Their presence made their commands natural to obey. In your life, this means cultivating composure, confidence, and control, even before you open your mouth. Human interactions are battles of perspective. Whoever controls the frame controls the outcome. If someone insults you, the weak frame is to defend yourself, to argue on their terms. The dominant frame is to redefine the situation, making their insult irrelevant. For example, if someone mocks your ambition, the weak person argues back. The strong person reframes, "I'd rather aim too high than live too small." Suddenly, the attacker looks petty, and you look untouchable. Machiavelli taught that perception often matters more than truth. Learn to shape how others perceive you, and you'll win battles before they even begin. People who are easy to predict are easy to exploit. If everyone knows you'll always forgive, you'll always give, you'll always wait, then you're easy prey. Psychological power comes from unpredictability. Sometimes you say yes, sometimes no. Sometimes you respond, sometimes you don't. Your decisions must feel deliberate, not automatic. This unpredictability keeps others cautious. They never know how far they can push you, and that uncertainty protects you. Influence isn't about shouting louder. It's about having leverage, something others need from you. That could be skills, information, relationships, or even reputation. When people depend on you, they respect you more. Stop trying to win by begging for validation. Start building value that others can't ignore. Machiavelli observed that rulers who controlled resources and alliances held power even over stronger armies. The same applies in your life. Create leverage and you'll never be overlooked again. Finally, the most important shift. Stop thinking like prey. Prey waits, hopes, and complains. Predators act, calculate, and adapt. This doesn't mean becoming cruel. It means becoming aware. It means no longer waiting for the world to be fair. It means taking ownership of your destiny. It means understanding that respect, influence, and confidence are built, not gifted. Write this declaration to yourself. I refuse to be psychologically dominated. This is your first step toward sovereignty of mind. Machiavelli didn't invent cruelty. He revealed the truth, that people who understand psychology will always rule over those who don't. If you want to stop being manipulated, you must see the game for what it is. The world will never reward you for your good heart alone, but it will respect your strength, your discipline, and your presence. Stop clinging to illusions. Step into reality. Become someone who cannot be ignored. Once you see this matrix of human behavior, you'll never be the same. Most people live under a dangerous illusion. They believe that being liked is the highest form of social success. They bend over backward to be agreeable, to win approval, and to avoid conflict. But here's the reality. Likability is cheap, fragile, and easily ignored. Respect, on the other hand, is rare, powerful, and lasting. Those who chase approval remain servants. Those who demand respect become leaders. The difference between people who merely get along and those who command attention lies in one simple shift. Moving from a mindset of pleasing to a mindset of dominating. Likeable people justify themselves. They explain their choices as if begging others for permission. Dominant individuals, by contrast, make decisions and expect the world to adapt. This transition, from approval-seeking to power-seeking, is the psychological pivot that separates the overlooked from the unforgettable. When you live for likability, your inner question is always, will people like me if I do this? But when you rise into dominance, the question transforms into, will this choice strengthen or weaken my social standing? Instead of softening the room so everyone feels comfortable, you become comfortable with other people's discomfort whenever it benefits your goals. Instead of begging for validation, you become the one whose validation carries weight. Your approval becomes a prize that others chase. This is not about cruelty. It's about recalibrating how you allocate your respect. Instead of handing it out freely to people who don't value it, you force others to earn it. True psychological power comes from consistently showing your standards and your boundaries. By holding firm, you flip the dynamic. People stop competing for your acceptance because now they are competing for yours. The fastest way to lose credibility is to be indecisive. Weak people destroy their authority not through one catastrophic mistake, but through endless tiny ones. They threaten consequences but never follow through. They give warning after warning, each one ignored more easily than the last. They repeat themselves until no one listens. This pattern trains others to dismiss them as harmless noise. Think about it. If you're always nagging, always pleading, always explaining, people stop hearing your words. They know you'll never deliver. You become all bark, no bite. That is the psychology of weakness. The dominant approach is the opposite. Powerful people act less often, but when they act, the impact echoes. They don't waste energy on hollow threats. They wait, they watch, and when they strike, it is decisive and unforgettable. Machiavelli himself advised that if harm must be done, it should be so complete that no retaliation is possible. Translated into modern psychology, this means when you finally respond to disrespect, do it in a way that erases doubt about whether it will happen again. Here's an example. Imagine someone in your circle constantly belittles you. They cut you off in conversations. They dismiss your contributions. They make sly jokes at your expense. The weak response? You repeatedly ask them to stop, complain to friends, and stew in private frustration. Every time you do this, you reinforce their dominance. They see that they can provoke you at will and face no meaningful consequences. The dominant response? You let the pattern build, then you act once, publicly and powerfully. Maybe you expose their behavior in front of others, making them look foolish. Maybe you exclude them from opportunities they care about. Maybe you turn allies against their conduct, leaving them socially isolated. The response is not about a single insult. It's about correcting the entire pattern with one overwhelming move. The result is psychological shock. Everyone watching realizes that disrespecting you carries a price. They see that you are not the type to nag or beg. You are the type to act once and decisively. That reputation becomes your shield. People stop testing you not out of fear of your anger, but out of respect for your consistency. This principle extends beyond conflict. Instead of endlessly reminding others of your value, you occasionally demonstrate it so forcefully that it leaves a lasting impression. Instead of being endlessly available, you withdraw at times, creating scarcity that increases your perceived worth. Instead of debating your stance repeatedly, you take an action so undeniable that it silences arguments. The rule is simple: fewer threats, stronger follow-through. Build a name not for empty warnings, but for decisive outcomes. Reality is important, but in social life, perception is reality. Most people mistakenly assume their work, their goodness, or their competence will naturally be recognized. They believe merit speaks for itself. It doesn't. Human beings make judgments instantly, based on surface-level cues. They don't have the time or the desire to dig for your deeper truth. If you don't control the image they see, someone else will create it for you, and it will rarely be in your favor. Machiavelli understood this perfectly. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Only a few ever know the truth of what you are. In other words, the version of you that people interact with is their reality. And that reality determines how much power, respect, and opportunity you receive. Psychologically sharp individuals recognize this and actively craft their reputations. They don't leave their image to chance. They don't assume people will guess their value. They demonstrate it intentionally and strategically. This isn't about fakery. It's about guiding attention to your strengths and minimizing focus on your weaknesses. Consider social media. Two people accomplish the same goal. One quietly goes on with life, assuming the world will notice. The other documents the journey, frames the achievement with authority, and builds a reputation around it. Which one gets opportunities? The one who managed perception. The same applies face-to-face. If you enter a room with firm posture, steady eye contact, and a clear voice, people unconsciously categorize you as a figure of importance. Walk in slouched, hesitant, and meek, and they dismiss you before you've said a word. Perception management means curating the stories people hear about you. It means associating with high-value individuals and environments. It means projecting confidence even when you feel uncertain, because confidence is contagious while doubt is repelling. It also means maintaining a touch of mystery, never letting people know every detail, forcing them to fill in the blanks with favorable assumptions. Your reputation is your most valuable form of currency. Guard it, shape it, and leverage it relentlessly. There's a higher level of influence beyond perception, and that's narrative. Perception is about how people see you in a moment. Narrative is about the story they tell about you over time. Whoever controls the story controls the meaning of events. The same action can be spun as bold leadership or reckless arrogance. It can be painted as confidence or selfishness, strength or brutality. Facts matter far less than the frame through which they're told. The individual who defines the frame wins. Most people focus only on what they do. They think the truth of their actions will speak clearly to others. This is naive. Psychology doesn't work that way. Humans rely on simplified stories because they don't have time to analyze deeply. The one who provides the most persuasive story wins, regardless of objective facts. You've seen this in every conflict. The person who explains their version first and with conviction usually wins public sympathy. Right or wrong becomes irrelevant, the story becomes reality. Machiavelli knew this. People judge more by appearances than by truth. They don't investigate, they accept the narrative they're given. This is why narrative control is psychological warfare. You must become skilled at framing every outcome in your favor. When you succeed, you don't just let success speak for itself, you shape the story of how and why it happened. When you fail, you don't sulk. You frame it as a valuable lesson or strategic sacrifice. When others attack you, you don't just defend, you rewrite the frame, making their attack look petty and your response look elevated. In practice, this means always asking, how can I control the meaning of this situation? If you make an unpopular decision, present it as being driven by principle and long-term thinking, not personal gain. If someone tries to humiliate you, frame their attack as insecurity rather than truth. If you withdraw from an opportunity, frame it as strategic focus, not weakness. Control the story, and you control the battlefield. The path from likability to dominance is not about cruelty, it's about mastery. It's about realizing that likability without respect is hollow. It's about learning that decisive action builds credibility where empty words never could. It's about understanding that perception is as powerful as truth, and that narrative often outweighs reality. Weak people wait for the world to be fair. Strong people study the psychology of influence and play by the real rules. They act rarely but decisively. They cultivate an image intentionally. They guard their narrative fiercely. And in doing so, they become the ones others respect, follow, and never forget. Remember, you can't control everything, but you can always control how you present yourself, how you act, and how your story is told. Stop chasing approval. Start commanding respect. Because in the end, the world doesn't remember who was the most likable. It remembers who was the most powerful. People who truly understand influence don't waste time defending themselves or explaining every action. They master the art of framing. When someone criticizes you or attacks your choices, the psychologically powerful don't fight fire with fire. Instead, they turn the attack into a reflection of the attacker's weakness. What looks like an insult becomes proof of envy. What appears as criticism becomes evidence that your presence threatens their status. When you achieve something significant, you don't let others define the narrative as luck or talent. You control the story so it highlights your strategy, your discipline, and your standards. Consider this. You cut off a friend who has repeatedly drained your energy and crossed your boundaries. Left unchecked, they may tell others you're cold or selfish. If you let that version spread, people might view you as heartless. But if you frame it first, explaining that you chose to protect your mental well-being and maintain healthy boundaries, suddenly the same action signals self-respect and strength. The action hasn't changed, but the interpretation has been transformed. This is advanced narrative control, anticipating how your decisions will be spun and shaping the story before it can be turned against you. You are not just acting, you are managing perception of your actions. You don't simply do things. You also decide how those things will be understood. The lesson is simple, always think ahead. Don't just ask, what will I do? But how will this be perceived, retold, and remembered? If you don't actively shape the story, someone else will write it for you, and you may not like their version. Once you grasp this, you can build the next layer of power, systematic consequences. This is the level beyond emotional reactions, beyond manipulation or empty threats. It's about creating predictable systems where your responses are automatic, consistent, and unarguable. Emotional authority can be challenged. Systems cannot. When your authority relies on anger, pleading, or verbal threats, you've handed others the ability to push your buttons. They can bait you into reacting. They can manipulate your emotions. They can negotiate with your patience. But when your authority is rooted in a clear system, where respect always grants access and disrespect always removes it, you no longer have to argue. You no longer have to remind. You no longer have to threaten. You simply allow the system to do the teaching. Machiavelli wrote that a wise leader should depend on what he controls, not on what lies in the hands of others. Systems put power back into your hands. Here's what it looks like in real life. Suppose you have a group of friends who expect you to plan events but routinely cancel or arrive late. The reactive person scolds them, guilt trips them, or argues. The systematic person says nothing but quietly stops inviting repeat offenders. You don't frame it as punishment or drama. You simply make it a rule. Those who respect your time get more of it. Those who waste it get less. Over time, people change their behavior not because you demanded it, but because the natural consequences of their actions taught them how to treat you. This approach creates deep psychological authority because it's predictable, impersonal, and fair. People can argue with your feelings, but they can't argue with a consistent rule. They can negotiate with your emotions, but they can't negotiate with an automatic system. And the best part? It's self-maintaining. You don't have to constantly monitor or police boundaries. The system enforces itself. From there, you move into a subtler form of power, what might be called silent dominance. This is the highest level of psychological control. It's where your power becomes so stable and so integrated into your behavior that you don't even need to talk about it. People who constantly proclaim how strong or ruthless they are rarely are. They're advertising what they wish they had, not what they actually possess. True influence doesn't need to be announced. True power is felt rather than declared. The most dangerous person in a room is rarely the loudest. It's the quiet observer who notices everything while revealing nothing. It's the person who plans while others react. It's the one who moves pieces on the board while everyone else is still debating the rules. Think about the psychologically formidable people you've met. Did they brag? Did they threaten? Did they constantly remind others of their strength? Probably not. Their influence was assumed, not requested. Their presence was commanding without being loud. Their decisions had weight because they acted with precision rather than noise. Machiavelli captured this duality perfectly. The fox is cunning enough to detect traps, the lion strong enough to frighten wolves. Real dominance means knowing when to be subtle and when to be forceful, and switching between the two without telegraphing your intent. This doesn't mean being sneaky for its own sake. It means using discretion strategically. When your moves are invisible until they're irreversible, you hold the advantage. When your allies benefit without knowing exactly how you position them, your loyalty feels natural. When your opponents suddenly lose influence without realizing where the pressure came from, your dominance feels inevitable. Silent dominance looks like this. You grow your influence without publicizing your ambition. You learn everything you can about others while revealing only what's necessary about yourself. You form alliances quietly and strategically. You let others take credit for moves that ultimately serve your goals. You don't respond to every provocation. You act once, decisively, and then let the results speak louder than your words. Over time, people begin to sense your power without being able to point to a single declaration or boast. Feels natural, not forced. Feels like gravity, not like shouting. That is the essence of silent dominance. Results over rhetoric, presence over posturing. And here's the harsh reality you must accept. If you don't master this dark side of human psychology, someone else already has, and they're using it. This isn't an abstract theory or a philosophical game. It's happening every day all around you. While you're reading this, there are manipulative people positioning themselves above others, taking advantage of those who still think fairness alone will protect them. While you're hesitating to apply these principles, someone more strategic is gaining the influence, respect, and opportunities you want. Every day you delay is another day you hand psychological leverage to someone else. You've been conditioned to believe that learning and using these principles is somehow immoral. That's exactly what dominant people want you to think. They want you naive. They want you predictable. They want you polite and easy to manage. They tell you it's bad to understand influence because they don't want competition. Meanwhile, they are practicing the very skills they're warning you against. This is the game you've been playing without knowing the rules. Every time you choose nice over strategic, you give power to someone who sees kindness as weakness. Every time you avoid setting boundaries because you're afraid of looking selfish, you train people to take advantage of you. Every time you rely on good intentions instead of clear systems, you become someone else's resource instead of your own leader. The world doesn't need more naive good guys finishing last. It needs people who understand reality. People who can pair integrity with strategy, empathy with boundaries, kindness with power. If these words feel like a wake-up call, that's because they are. This is not just about learning psychological tricks. It's about reshaping your identity into someone who cannot be easily manipulated, someone who commands respect without begging for it, someone who shapes narratives instead of being shaped by them. The choice is not between good and bad. The choice is between being powerful or being controlled, between being a player or being a piece on someone else's board. If you're tired of being psychologically dominated, stop saying it and start proving it. Commit to practicing these principles. Show you're done with being naive. Share these ideas with someone who still thinks being nice is enough to earn respect. And above all, declare to yourself that you will no longer hand over power by default. Stop waiting. While you hesitate, others are already deciding how to use your hesitation. While you deliberate, others are already positioning themselves above you. The clock is ticking. This is your moment to step into real psychological strength. Not loud strength, not advertised strength, but quiet, undeniable, strategic influence, the kind that makes you impossible to ignore. Build systems, not threats. Shape narratives, not excuses. Operate with silent dominance, not desperate noise. And remember this truth. In the game of human influence, you're either mastering the board or you're someone else's pawn. The decision is yours, but choose quickly, because the people who understand this game are already making moves while you're still thinking about it.